Destiny 2 may be getting a bit too complicated, and I'm not sure it's a good thing. This should be a good one.
Your favorite bodily sound?
Now, before anyone may get a little upset, let me preface everything in this video by saying that complex aspects of a game are not necessarily bad, but there's a couple aspects of Destiny right now that I feel deserve to be at least talked about. Okay, for a moment, let's consider Destiny 1. If you did any raids back in the day, you probably remember that if you didn't have Gjallarhorn or Icebreaker, you were like the skinny kid no one wanted on their team. So let me get this straight, you don't have Gjallarhorn? Nah man, RNG just hasn't really been on my side lately, you know? Alright, well, do you have, like, Icebreaker, or... No, but I have this other... Your worth on a team was dictated solely upon whether you had this rocket launcher, which, by the way, was an exotic drop, which back then meant that you needed to get an exotic engram to drop, which was rare enough, especially in year 1. It needed to be an exotic heavy engram, because that was a thing, and it needed to decode into Gjallarhorn. All that, or of course you were one of the 8 people who bought it from Xur on his second weekend around, which you almost certainly didn't. Now, of course, you could get anything done in the game without Gjallarhorn. That was just taboo. This all really wasn't that bad, I'm just painting a picture for comparison's sake later on. Now let's take a look at what's going on over in Destiny 2 as of now. Destiny 2 has really evolved over the years, and a huge part of that has been leaning more into builds with armor mods, aspects, fragments, and weapon crafting. This, of course, means that the most hardcore of players will spend a lot of time perfecting their damage output per second via the ideal combination of all the aforementioned things. Now, this is great for those players who either have the time to craft those builds or like that layer of complexity. However, for the more casual audience, I can only imagine this may be pretty off-putting if this isn't what you're looking for. Imagine you're an average Joe looking to run your first raid, you go over to Bungie's LFG site, join a team, and are met with someone asking why your armor isn't masterworked with volatile flow, champion mods, running Deathbringer and Sentinel Shield, using this combination of aspects and fragments to be spewing out the ideal damage. All of that when Joe here just wants to run a certain little build of his own with the weapons and aspects that he likes. Now look, though I've run into a few, the vast majority of people aren't build perfectionists like the guy I'm describing. However, you can see the difference between Destiny 1's PvE meta and Destiny 2's ever-changing, might I add, since mods change, PvE meta. It's not all bad, especially since recently Bungie has done a great job creating encounters and things like raids or legendary campaign mode that allow for more player creativity and have a less heavy reliance on things like champions. I just started wondering here recently though if the game is starting to become a bit overcomplicated or overbearing to players who just want a bit more of a casual experience. I acknowledge, however, that it's a thin line between making a game casual friendly and catering to a certain demographic. You don't want a game to be too complicated, however you also want the diehard fans to see a noticeable improvement upon putting a lot of time and effort into their build. I agree with a lot of the things Paul Tassi said in his recent video about champions, and I definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't already. I won't spoil what he says in his video, but my take on champions is that I feel Bungie should start to reconsider where they're placed in the game. I don't do Grandmaster Nightfalls, so I can't comment on them. However, it is a bit annoying when the game's difficulty feels like it's being increased just by adding some champions that lock you or a teammate into using certain type of weapon depending on the season. The mods for dealing with champions also take up a mod slot, so for players who love making the perfect build, I can only imagine that that takes some of the fun out of it as well. In the end, I don't know if Destiny is getting too complicated. Part of me thinks it is, but another part of me can appreciate that complexity. At this point, I think this situation is more in the community's hands than Bungie's. I understand the people who just want to get raid runs and trials runs done as quickly as possible. However, me personally, I'll always be willing to work with someone, whether that means teaching them the encounters or making the best of their less than ideal loadout. I think it's important that more casual players feel like they can play the way they want for the most part. No shame to people who just want to get in and get it done, however. I respect that. Anyway, what do you think? Is Destiny's mod system starting to overcomplicate things, or are things fine just as they are? If you made it to the end, I truly appreciate that as always, and if you liked this video, you may enjoy my last video on the death of rumors in video games, or any of the other Destiny, Halo gaming related videos I've made. Thanks so much for hanging out, and goodbye.